Hello my yarny friends, I'm Sara Sach and welcome to my crochet channel. Today's video is our 6-inch square of the month, and this is March, so we're doing one that is Aquamarine, which is the March birthstone. Now, if you haven't had a chance to follow what we've been doing, each month we're releasing a new 6-inch square. This is January garnet. This is February amethyst, and it's just inspired by the color of the birthstone. It doesn't have to be solid, although you could do them solid. I'm doing 2 colors. You can do solids. But what we're doing is we're making a square each month. There'll be 12 altogether. I'm actually making 2 of each of my squares, and that's going to make a nice size blanket to have on your lap to watch a movie or something like that. But you can make as many of each one of them as you would like. You could make 4 or 8, or you could do your whole blanket in just one of these types of squares. And you don't have to make a blanket. You could make a purse or a bag, a hat, a scarf, whatever you want to out of these squares. It's just super fun to learn a new technique each month. And I'm just using the birthstones as an inspiration, so to speak. All right, so this was January garnet. I made 2. This was February amethyst, and I made 2. And here is our March aquamarine. And I've just got one made here. I've already got it on my blocking board. And at the end of the first video, the garnet one, I talked a little bit about how to block them if you want to. I like to block squares when I'm going to put them together. I think it makes it easier so that the edges match up nicely. But you don't have to, of course. Okay, and so this is our aquamarine one. It has sort of a similar look to it as maybe a clover, which is kind of what I was going for, but not exactly. And this is a really neat technique. We do large, not large, but bigger chains around, and then we stitch around those chains, and then we begin to form our square. And I use 2 colors because I want this particular center to pop out. All right? Okay, now you can find this square and these other squares. I'll put those links down in the notes underneath this video. And remember, each square has a written pattern with pictures and a video. So as far as supplies, you're going to need 2 colors. This one I did in a bright white, but I'm going to use this sort of creamy white on this one because I like making them just a little bit different and not exactly what I would say matchy-matchy, but I do like having them similar. So I am going to use a similar teal. I think this one's a little bit lighter than what I used here, and I'm going to use this cream. All right, and you just need a small amount. And it really depends on how many you're going to make, how much yarn that you're going to need, okay? And so you just have to kind of play that part by ear. We're going to be stitching with our eye hook, which is a 5.5 millimeter crochet hook. You need a needle for weaving in ends, and then, of course, your scissors. And remember, just because I'm making this in the aquamarine colors and cream or white doesn't mean you have to. You can do it in whatever colors you prefer. So I'm starting with my aquamarine color, which an aquamarine is kind of a teal that goes more towards the blue, where a teal actually goes more towards the green, but it really doesn't matter. I'll make my slip knot, and I'm going to chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to join this chain 5 into a circle. So I put the tail of yarn over the hook, snug that down, and tie our stay knot. Now, if you would prefer to use another method to make your beginning circle, you certainly can. So we're going to go in, pull up a loop, and we're going to chain 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now we're going to go back to the circle. We're going to slip stitch, chain 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and we're going to do this 2 more times so that we have 4 chain 6 loops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then we'll go back in and make a slip stitch. Now we're going to slip stitch into that chain 6 loop, and we'll just go ahead and chain 1 for now. Pull that out a little bit. And so what you have here is 4 chain 6 loops. We slip stitched into that first loop and chained 1. All right, and now we're going to stitch in this first chain 6 loop. We're going to single crochet. Now we're going to stitch 2 half double crochets. So yarn over, go in, pull up a loop, yarn over, and go through all 3 of your loops, and we'll do that again. 2 half double crochets. Now we're going to stitch 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Now we're going to stitch 2 half double crochets. 1, 2, and then a single crochet. And these are all stitched in that first chain 6 loop. Now we'll go to our next chain stitch loop, stitch a slip stitch, chain 1. And now we're going to repeat what we just did. Single crochet, 2 half double crochets, 1, 2, 3 double crochets, 1, 2, 3, 2 half double crochets, 1, 2, then a single crochet, all in that next loop. Then we'll go to the next one, slip stitch, and chain 1. And see how it makes those rounded sections? And we're going to do that on these last 2 loops also. I have completed those last 2 stitches around my loops. We're going to join to the first single crochet with a slip stitch, and we're going to cut our yarn. All right, we're going to tie this off. We'll pull that loop to the back, and we'll weave this in. Now you can weave it in later if you want to, but I like to go ahead and do it now. And we're also going to pull this string and close up that hole in the center. And you can weave this in later also if you want to. I just like to go ahead and get it done. So I'm going to weave this in. Close up that hole in the center. And then I'm going to go ahead and weave this end in also, because we're going to be joining our white yarn in one of the corners to make our little clover or 4-leaf clover here. It's not really that, it just sort of resembles it, to make it have a nice square. All right, so I've weaved both of those in. And it kind of looks like a butterfly, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to grab our color 2, and we're going to go to the next corner where there are 3 double crochets, and in that second one we're going to bring in our color 2. We're going to chain 2, then we're going to stitch a half double crochet in that same stitch. We're going to chain 1 and stitch 2 half double crochets in that same double crochet stitch. Whoops, it's a half double, not a double crochet. All right, so we've made our first corner. Our chain 2 counts as our first half double crochet. Then we double or half double crocheted, chained 1 and 2 half double crochets. Now we're going to chain 2, and we're going to move over here to this space here in the center where we did our slip stitch, and we're going to stitch a double crochet, chain 1, and double crochet in that stitch, and chain 2. All right, now let's look at this, a little knot there, so that you understand where to place this. This is basically a V-stitch. In between where we went from single crochet, then we went to a slip stitch, it's in between that spot, okay? It's basically between the two single crochets because we single crocheted last, then we slip stitched over and did a single crochet. So it's in between that single crochet and that slip stitch. And there's a little bit of a hole there that goes right into. All right, then we chain 2. We go to the next corner where those 3 double crochets are, and we stitch a half double crochet and another half double crochet, chain 1, and 2 more half double crochets in that second double crochet. 1, 2, and chain 2. All right, there we go. I'm like, my cream yarn's got a little bit of a knot. All right, so in between, before, here's our last single crochet, and then here's our single crochet and our slip stitch, and you want to go right in that space in between. So double crochet, chain 1, and double crochet, which of course is a V-stitch, and chain 2. All right, and then we'll repeat that on these next 2 sides and join back over here to our chain 2. I want to make sure that you understood where to put your stitches on row 3. All right, so our corners, 2 half double crochets, chain 1, 2 half double crochets are in the second double crochet in that grouping, okay? Then we chain 2 and we placed a V-stitch, which is a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, and that space between the last single crochet and where we slip stitched in that next loop. All right, it goes right down in that space. Let's finish up round or row 3. All right, so we're going to slip stitch to our chain 2, slip stitch in the half double crochet, and slip stitch in the chain 1 space, and chain 2. Our chain 2 counts as our first half double crochet. So we're going to stitch another half double crochet, chain 1, and 2 half double crochets in that same chain 1 space. Now we're going to chain 2. We're going to move over to the chain 1 space where we stitch that V-stitch, and we're going to stitch a single crochet, chain 1, and single crochet in that chain 1 space, and chain 2. All right, we'll move to the next chain 1 space, and we'll stitch 2 half double crochets, 1 and 2, chain 1, and 2 half double crochets, chain 2. We'll go to the next V-stitch, chain 1 space, stitch a single crochet, chain 1, and single crochet, and chain 2. And so that is how we're going to work row 4. 2 half double crochets, chain 1, and 2 half double crochets in the corner, chain 2, single crochet, chain 1, single crochet in that chain 1 space of that V-stitch, chain 2, and repeat on these last 2 sides. Then we'll join back to our chain 2. So this is how row or round 4 should look. It might still look just a little bit wonky, but don't worry. Like I said, it's going to flatten right out, and we can always use a blocking board if it doesn't, but mine always do. All right, so there's our chain 2. We're going to join to our chain 2 that counts as our first half double crochet, Then we're going to slip stitch my hook in there. There we go. In the next half double crochet, and then slip stitch in our chain 1 space. All right, now we're going to change to our aquamarine. And you can tie off your white if you want to, or you can leave it attached. I always just go ahead and cut it off because we're going to do 2 rows, and you'll end up with a line up the back that might notice if you make it into a blanket. So I'm going to go ahead and cut my white off, but we'll be bringing it back in on our last row. All right, so now we have our aquamarine again. We're going to go in that chain 1 space of the corner, and we're going to chain 3 this time because the chain 3 counts as our first double crochet. We're going to stitch another double crochet, chain 1, and then 2 double crochets. And chain 2. Now we're going to go to the chain 2 space and stitch 2 double crochets. 1 and 2. Then we'll stitch a chain 2. Then we'll stitch 2 double crochets in the next chain 2 space. And chain 2. So we didn't stitch there, we stitched in the spaces before and after. All right, so we have our chain 2. We're going to go to the next chain 1 space on the corner and stitch 2 double crochets, chain 1 and 2 double crochets, chain 2. Then we'll go to the next chain 2 space and stitch 2 double crochets, chain 2, and go to the next chain 2 space and stitch 2 double crochets, and chain 2. And so that's our repeat for row 5. 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 double crochets, chain 2, 2 double crochets in the chain 2 space, chain 2, 2 double crochets in the chain 2 space, chain 2, and then repeat this on these last 2 rows just like we did here, or these last 2 sides, not rows. And then we'll join back to our chain 3. I have repeated that on those last 2 corners. So we have 4 corners of 2 double crochet, chain 1, 2 double crochet, and then chain 2, 2 double crochets, chain 2, 2 double crochets, chain 2 on each side. We're going to join to that chain 3 with a slip stitch. We're going to slip stitch in that next double crochet, and then slip stitch in the chain 1 space and chain 3. All right, so now we're going to stitch a double crochet in that chain 1 space, chain 1 and 2 double crochets, 1 and 2. All right, so now we're going to double crochet in the next double crochet. And we're going to chain 1. We're going to double crochet in the chain 1 space, chain 1. We're going to double crochet between the next 2 double crochets, chain 1, double crochet in the chain 1 space, chain 1. All right, so we chained 1. We're going to double crochet between the next 2 double crochet stitches, chain 1, double crochet in the chain 2 space, and chain 1. All right, now we're going to skip this next double crochet and double crochet in the next double crochet. And now we're at the chain 1 space, so we'll stitch 2 double crochets, 1 and 2, chain 1, and 2 double crochets in that chain 1 space because that's our corner. All right, then we'll double crochet in that first double crochet. Oops, there we go. And chain 1. And I just want you to see the way that side looks. We've got chain 1, double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 chain 1 spaces. Okay, let's do the other side here. All right, so we chained 1, we'll double crochet in the chain 2 space, chain 1, double crochet between those next 2 double crochets, chain 1, double crochet in the chain 2 space, chain 1, double crochet between those next 2 double crochets, chain 1, double crochet in the chain 2 space, chain 1, skip the next double crochet and double crochet in the next double crochet. And at this point, you're going to notice that your square is starting to really lay nice and flat. It's not all wonky like it was after row 2. Actually, that was after row 3 that it got a little wonky. All right, so now we'll just go to our chain 1 space and repeat what we've just done. And then we'll keep on going and repeat on those last 2 sides. I have completed those last 2 sides. Here's our last double crochet, chain 1. Make sure you skip this double crochet and double crochet in the next. And then join to your chain 3 with a slip stitch in the next double crochet, and then slip stitch in that chain 1 space. And that last double crochet there is very important because it makes all 4 of our corners have those 3 double crochets. If you didn't do that one, you would only have 2 on that side. All right, and see how nice and flat that's laying now? Super cute. All right, so we're going to grab our scissors. We're going to cut off, whoops, there we go, color 1, and we're going to join in our color 2. Now this last row is just a row of single crochets, and this gives us a nice edge when it's time to join our squares together. All right, so single crochet, chain 1, and single crochet in the corner. And now what we're going to do is we're going to single crochet in each of the double crochets and each of the chain 1 spaces. And I changed back to my color 2, just make the color 1 pop. But if you want to continue with the same color, you certainly can, or make a different color. Remember, these are the colors that I've chosen, and if you want to make these squares in other colors that have nothing to do with the colors that I made, that's totally fine. These squares would make great scrap buster squares using up your leftover medium weight acrylic yarns. And then you could make a really terrific colorful blanket with all the squares, or again, whatever you wanted to make with all the squares. Alrighty, so now I'm to the next corner, and I'm going to single crochet, chain 1, and single crochet in that chain 1 space, and then continue down the next side, stitching a single crochet in each of the double crochets and each of the chain 1 spaces. And I really like to add single crochets to the edges of my squares. It gives me a nice even place to join my squares together, but I also think it helps the squares hold their shape nicely. And so I'm just going to continue stitching around, stitching a single in each of the stitches and spaces, and then single, chain 1, single in our 4 corners. So I have single crocheted all the way around. Now I'm going to join to that first single crochet with a slip stitch. I'm going to cut my yarn, and then I'll bring that loop to the back of my work, and I do have a couple of ends I need to weave in. But for this particular project, I didn't feel like I wanted to carry the yarns, because if we had of, there would have been a piece of yarn here, And then there would have been one from here to here. And that would not look as pretty if you're going to make this into a blanket. Although if you're going to make a bag, you know, you can always line that bag. But here's the front, and you can see by adding this trim on here, it gives us a nice edge to attach them together. All right, so I'm going to take a couple minutes. I'm going to go ahead and weave these ends in, and then I'm going to talk again about how to block them if you want to. I thought I'd go ahead and just do a review on that at the end here of this video. So just to review how to block, you don't have to. This one I probably wouldn't, because I think it's shaped nicely and would work nicely with my other ones. But if you're not satisfied, you want it to be just a little crisper, this is a blocking board I got at Michael's a few years back. I got them in a pack, I think, of 4 for $5. But you can find these on Amazon. You can find them at any of your stores like Joann's or Michael's. I haven't seen them at Hobby Lobby lately, but they're really inexpensive. I've even seen them at the Walmart. So you can find these anywhere. If you don't want to use this, you can use cardboard with a cloth towel over it so that you can dampen it and lay it flat. Okay, so what I do is I just go ahead and pin it. And make sure you use new pins, not the old stained steel pins, because they will rust. I had some old ones given to me and when I was doing some dresses, and they made rust marks. So you want to make sure you use stainless steel pins. And nowadays, most of the pins that you buy are stainless steel. All right, so I put it on my blocking board. And make sure my corners are in the corners. And then all I do is I take a spray bottle of water with nothing else in it, and I just spritz it. I don't soak it down. I just spritz it so that it's damp. And I either set it on my back patio in the sun, or I set it on my dryer if I'm going to run a load. A lot of times, though, I'll just leave it out on the counter here in my yarn room. And just by having it sitting in here and drying by itself, it blocks it perfectly.